Welcome to Wine Plus AI. We're your hosts and wine lovers, Adrian and Zaina. This is the podcast where we break it all down for real people, not the people who are working in the terminal.
Just the truth about AI. What's brilliant, what's broken, and what's straight up ridiculous.
Let's get into it.
All right, welcome back to another episode. Today's episode is all about what's coming next. So acceleration, instability, and how quickly things can shift. So that's why we're pairing it with a wine that feels exactly like that. The wine's called Suelo Vivo. I'm probably going to butcher the rest of the pronunciation. It's by Azul y Garanza. It's a Spanish white from Navarra. It's unfiltered, super live, and a little unpredictable. So Suelo Vivo literally means living soil. And it's basically the perfect metaphor for this episode. Why? Because the ground beneath AI right now also feels alive. It's shifting, it's moving, and it's full of energy we don't fully understand yet. And this wine has the same vibe. Bright, mineral, and slightly wild. The kind of thing that evolves in the glass while you're drinking it. So let's give it a try.
Yeah. Cheers.
Cheers.
All right. So we're starting today by getting into AI 2027. This is a paper that you had actually recommended to me, Zaina. And now it is a paper that I recommend to everybody who is interested in AI. Literally after I didn't read it, I listened to it because I'm an audio girly. And I've been recommending it to everyone. I just can't stop talking about it. And I have forced multiple people to read it because I just need to talk about it. So I'm super happy to be in on this episode with you.
Yeah, I'm excited about this one. I've also been doing a lot of advertisement for this paper for the last few months. But yeah, so basically today we're going to zoom out a bit. So right now it's November 2025. And kind of depending on who you ask, in this context of AI, we're either on the edge of a huge breakthrough or a slow and chaotic slide into something we can't quite control. So if you haven't read AI 2027 yet, here's the quick summary for context. So it's basically a roadmap predicting where AI could realistically be 2 years from now if current trends continue. And this was written by a group of independent researchers a few months ago and basically published as a forecast. So all of those researchers have experience also in various AI companies, or at least some of them, and have been working together to really create some clarity on what AI can and cannot do. And basically the paper outlines two different paths. One is basically a slow control trajectory where progress keeps happening, but we can still steer it. So we as the human are still in control of how AI is evolving. And then there's the other, slightly scarier, if I say so myself, path, which is the path of rapid acceleration, which is where AI starts doing more of the research and engineering itself. So basically automating AI development, which could send us into a completely new regime much faster than institutions, governments, or even companies are ready for. So today, I really would love to look at where we actually stand right now in late 2025 versus what the paper thinks the next 2 years could look like. So what's real and what's the hype? And what should we actually genuinely be paying attention to?
Yeah, so this is something, just to get us started, where are we actually today when we look at what is actually laid out by AI 2027? When I was reading / listening to it, I felt that so many of the things were so scarily accurate in terms of the players that are currently in the space, what their motives are, real kind of trends that we've already seen happening within the AI space in terms of acceleration, in terms of censorship, in terms of control, security, all of these things. I was like, ooh, it's like, this is a little foreboding. But I do think that if we look further beyond some of the forecasting that has been done in this paper, which I also think is weirdly scarily accurate, but I sometimes feel this dissonance in terms of it. For me personally, it feels like the primary actors, so Open Brain and what was it, the other one, the Chinese equivalent, It will come to us. But with the two actors, I kind of felt that they were accelerating on their own.
Yeah.
And the reality is that as these indeed, they are accelerating on their own when we look at the real world of how AI development is going. But at the same time, I think for somebody who is anchored in AI for companies in a B2B or B2C context, I don't see the same kind of acceleration.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't see the same acceleration possible. But I guess that's also kind of the point of the paper, is that people are left behind.
Mm-hmm.
So on one hand, I'm like, surely many of these companies should raise their hand at a certain point and say like, hey, we get that you're developing and like all these things are possible, but what's possible for us as businesses?
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good point. I think if I look at AI adoption, let's say in the context of our company, like we're obviously an AI first company. So AI plays a huge role in everything that we do. But even when we're looking at, for example, adopting, let's say, a new model version or adopting a new tool internally, there's always still some time that is needed to actually
make it happen,
get up to speed. And we're a small company, so for us, it is still fast. Yeah. If I look at what some of my friends tell me in the corporates that they work in,
well, sorry, that's like quite rude, but
it's like, I think one of my friends was working at a very, very well-known medical equipment company. They just got access to co-pilots, but in a very limited manner. So they're still not able to use a lot of the like looking up information in like on OneDrive, things like that. It's very limited. They can just ask basic questions. And for them, that's like a huge step in AI. And I think the like milestone that they have in their like AI rollout plan for like the next step is in 2 years.
Okay, so that's 2027.
Exactly.
By the predictions in this paper, we will be in a much different situation,
exactly.
And they will only be just getting up to speed with maybe implementing 1 or 2 tools in AI in their company at that point.
Literally. And for example, if you also look at the way that, for example, Europe is moving and European Commission, if you look at the AI Act that is coming into effect in 2026, which was built and guardrailed based on the state of AI, I think 3 years ago, and is already way outdated. So some of the things that are coming to effect and going to be legally binding are going to be quite painful for companies and slow down also development. So
slow down development in Europe, but this paper doesn't necessarily address Europe.
Exactly.
So that is also a little... I didn't feel particularly seen in this scenario, besides being almost like the very side character, like a tertiary character in a book. And yeah, I do feel that it didn't feel as relatable, let's just say.
Yeah, it's hard to grasp. And even like working with it every day, I still feel like this is such a far-fetched reality to some extent, even though we are living pieces of it, right? But if we look a bit deeper at what AI 2027 actually expects to happen, or what the kind of big claims are, because there's quite a few bold ones in there. The really big one is by the end of 2027, AI systems will be doing the major chunk of AI research themselves. So that means AI is writing code, testing it, generating experiments, improving models, and contributing to its own acceleration. And that's basically where things could start kind of tipping.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Because the feedback loop is with itself rather than with a human in the loop, for example. And if you had to bet right now, looking at how things are going right now from your perspective, what are we inching towards to? The stable path or the messy?
I think we're going towards the messy path. However, I do have a feeling that when we get to that, I hope that, and I'm also maybe a bit of an AI pessimist myself, but I do hope that when we get to that point where humans are burning out, trying to keep up with the developments that AI is making on its own bequest, I do hope that we do kind of raise our hands and say like, hey, listen, we do need a human in the loop. at the expense of progress. And that's what I did feel throughout when you get to the later stages of this kind of rapid acceleration, is I do feel that they assume that all actors involved will be incentivized as well to prioritize progress overall, because AI is not just a technology that helps businesses and helps individuals, but is actually a political weapon and potentially a military weapon. Yes. And that is where I feel like things get very complicated. And again, being rooted in, a AI company that is B2B for customer support, I do feel kind of more rooted in like, no, it's a tool. It's to help businesses. I'm not thinking about a military grade weapon over here, but it is. It could be.
Yeah.
And it has applications. So that's what on some level, I'm a little afraid of what I don't know in this scenario, where I see all these kind of incentives to progress at all costs. And I don't really know what's pushing that, and I can't really foresee what's pushing that, and that's what's a bit troubling on my end.
Yeah, it's interesting that you're pointing out the potential weaponization of AI, because, for example, like in the UAE, the MGX facilities, you have in the US, obviously, a whole lot of AI facilities, and also in Japan, they're currently constructing their national compute grid quite a bit. And so companies are all racing to kind of make that step forward first. And there's a few countries who have basically called these programs, initiatives, AI weapons programs, usually without using those exact words, but by describing it. And someone in the US Senate actually said, compute is the new oil, which is quite a big statement in that context. So with these compute races, do you feel like they are looking more like innovation or geopolitical panic?
Both. I would say both. With every arms race, there's a lot of progress that then, of course, comes out from this. But at the same time, it does generate quite a lot of panic. If I thought I was panicked about climate change, a few months ago, now I'm definitely more panicked about this.
Yeah.
And I just feel like as a millennial, I'm not sure how much more existential dread and panic I can add to my roster, if I'm very honest. I'm just trying to make sense of all of this and look at the issue is, and maybe I'm not looking in the right places, but I don't feel like this is the kind of language that's grabbing headlines quite yet. We're talking, I read the New York Times almost every day. And that's just one outlet, but they're definitely not talking about AI development in terms of, almost like an arms race. Nobody's talking about it quite yet, but that could change. And I think that's what it's also proposing, that it will change. On the other hand, I'm not sure how much of this will actually be shared on a public level because of the public good that AI has already proven and continues to prove that it's good for. But then again, you could have said that for nuclear energy, for example.
Definitely. And I do think the visibility towards the public is quite important, because I think a lot of people underestimate the impact all of this rat racing basically has on, for example, the environment, or also various other factors. May that be governing powers, may that be anything else. And I think what you said with the New York Times, I can definitely relate to, if I read The Guardian, for example. Usually when it comes to AI developments, it's something like, hey, this cool new thing, and hey, we discovered this. That's great. But also, what's the impact of us having done that? And it does feel like all the countries are kind of in this Olympics race almost. But nobody knows what the gold medalist will actually win.
Yeah. I think, that's a good analogy. I do think that coverage is generally skeptical. I have seen quite a few headlines of using AI for education. So is it making our kids dumber? When should you introduce AI to your family or to your children? I do think that we are critical, and we're also, we already talked about Diela in Albania. These kind of headlines are getting to us, but we're not talking about it in a military context, widespread.
Yes. And I think you have the military aspect and you also have the government aspect as well, right? The political manipulation that we also briefly touched on in the previous episode. And the government's abilities to actually adapt to the speed that the AI models are actually increasing at. And that translates to us already letting AI make decisions that affect millions and millions, if not billions, of people.
Yeah, this is also, okay, so I do really want to get to this before we close out the episode, because I do think the human in the loop is something that we've talked about quite a lot at Neeple, at our company. We know that this is important for our customers very often. We also know that it's important for us to be able to trust AI. Do you think, I just can't imagine that the appetite would be such that people would be okay with letting go like that. That they would, that in this prediction in AI 2027, they say at a certain point, well, let's just say rapid acceleration, in the interest of progress, they allow AI to develop itself, essentially. And you take the human out of the loop. I just can't, I don't know, maybe it's because we're in 2025 and we still need to trust AI. I just can't imagine that happening, but maybe, yeah.
Yeah, I also struggle to imagine it happening, but I also do see the risk factor of companies that are in charge of these models and are in charge of the research and development just consciously making that choice, which is a choice that is then made for winning the Olympics, basically, and optimizing for profits rather than a choice made for the people. Because I would also agree that if you did a survey with everyone in the world, probably, and gave them all of the relevant context on what that actually translates to, the impact, the potential implications, and basically just had everyone read AI 2027, I would almost guarantee you that the population would vote to go down the slow path consciously rather than the path of rapid acceleration.
But that's also and maybe this is like a tinge of like conspiracy theorist here. But like this is also why I feel like partially this is not making headlines at all. That there could be, some kind of conscientious downplaying of the seriousness of the situation, because number one, it hasn't gotten that serious quite yet, and number two, we don't want to instigate real extreme panic here. Yeah, but I think as long as you continue to, moral of the story is that as long as you continue to have humans in the loop, it's all Gucci, it's all fine. However, yeah, TBD on how long those humans actually stay in the loop.
Yeah, I think the big question that also comes out of that is, okay, if the human isn't in the loop, who chooses the goals and the values for the AI researchers researching itself?
Yeah, in AI we trust.
Yeah, because then it becomes basically the blind leading the blind. And we don't know what the outcome of that can be.
Yeah. All right, going back to the wine, how do we feel? For me, this still feels very unsteady with this choice of wine.
Same.
The flavor has also changed over the last few minutes as well. So definitely the definition of unstable.
Yeah, I think it definitely fits to the episode. Let's put it that way.
All right, just closing this out. How are we feeling about 2027? I still think it's far off in terms of, again, very isolated to these big players, and I wonder how much more information will come out from that. But I see it still as a little bit of a long shot. Again, that's maybe my limited perspective, and being, again, rooted in, yes, an AI company, but a company nonetheless, and not one of these big AI companies, let's just say. For you, how are you feeling about it?
Yeah, I think I have a lot of question marks. I have a lot of worries, but also there is that curiosity, right? It's like, okay, what would a accelerated world actually look like, for example?
Yeah, indeed.
But I think it does come back down to, at the end, how this is going to play out is, yes, of course, somewhat going to depend on the models and the ability of computing technology to be able to drive them forward. But most importantly, it's going to depend on us as society and the people making the decisions on how models are trained and how we are progressing with them. That will determine what 2027 or the end of 2027 will actually look like. And on that front, I am a bit worried because I do believe the likelihood is quite high that there will be a push for this acceleration, but I also see the potential that there will be a break point of that, which will force society to go to a more slow and steady approach. But what that looks like, I have no idea. Only time will tell.
But we also need a more educated and informed society. So that's why my ask at the end of this podcast is essentially that please, if you haven't read it already, I hope you have, because otherwise this conversation has been a little disorienting. But please, please, please read it, because this is something that I think we should all be evangelizing, thinking about as we go into 2027.
Couldn't agree more.
All right. Well, that's the end of this episode. It will be uploaded to the Joy Lab. We also have some blurbs from our CTO, Job. I think one of the most recent ones, he discusses actually creating AI agents that are working with each other. So again, not taking the human out of the loop, but definitely going to the next stage of using AI to develop AI. And holy moly, it's weird. So read on there and tune in to the next episode. We'll see you in the next one.
See you next time. That's it for this week. You know the drill.
Like, subscribe,
and see you next week.
Cheers.